In recent weeks, the focus of the global economy and the technology community has turned to Nvidia, the most valuable corporation in history, with a market capitalization exceeding $5 trillion. That is more than the combined GDP of entire nations such as Japan or Germany. Nvidia has become a symbol of American technological dominance, a company that literally powers the entire modern artificial intelligence industry. Its chips are installed in the data centers of Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and OpenAI, enabling machine learning systems, autonomous driving, military simulators, and even reconnaissance satellites. Yet beneath the glittering surface of record-breaking financial success lies a fragile dependency that few have dared to discuss until recently: dependence on China. According to the Financial Times, more than 90% of all critical components used in the production of Nvidia's graphics processors are directly or indirectly tied to China's industrial base. These include rare earth elements such as neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium, indispensable for creating high-efficiency semiconductors, as well as metal alloys used in cooling systems. Even some optical and ceramic substrates come from Chinese plants integrated into the global supply chain through Taiwan and Singapore. Officially, Nvidia is an American company, but in essence, its heart beats thanks to Chinese resources. Analysts at Bloomberg Intelligence have described this as the technological dependency of the 21st century. The problem has become acute at this very moment. According to sources close to China's Ministry of Commerce, Beijing has demanded that Nvidia and the administration of Donald Trump reconsider the export restrictions on the latest generation of chips destined for China. The issue concerns the H200 and B100 series, the most powerful artificial intelligence processors developed specifically for OpenAI and American military research centers. After the United States imposed restrictions, shipments of these chips to China were effectively banned out of fear they could be used for military or intelligence purposes. Now China has gone on the offensive, issuing an ultimatum that if Washington does not lift the ban, Beijing will impose retaliatory measures. According to Reuters insiders, the Chinese side has already drafted a decree that would sharply limit exports of rare earth minerals and technological components to American companies including Nvidia, Intel, and AMD. This is not merely an economic lever, but a strategic weapon. China controls about 70% of global rare earth mining and over 80% of processing. Without these elements, no modern GPU, laser, radar, or electric motor can be made. Beijing understands this perfectly and is using it as a tool of pressure. Panic has begun in Washington. According to the Wall Street Journal, the White House has held several closed meetings involving the Department of Defense, the National Security Council, and executives of major U.S. corporations. One question dominated the discussion: what happens if China truly cuts off the flow of materials? The answer was shocking. Within 3 weeks, production at Nvidia's factories could completely halt. Without Chinese magnets, substrates, and chemical reagents, the assembly process for GPUs simply cannot continue. Moreover, none of the existing alternatives, neither Australian mines nor American refiners, can quickly make up for the shortfall. This is not merely a supply chain disruption, but a potential collapse of the entire artificial intelligence industry on which the U.S. economy now depends. Insiders in Washington claim that the Trump administration is already preparing for compromise. According to Politico, a secret agreement may soon be signed allowing Nvidia to temporarily resume limited shipments of its new chips to China through third countries, likely Singapore or the United Arab Emirates. Formally, this will appear as scientific cooperation or civilian research, but in reality, it is an attempt to avoid a full-scale technological shock. In exchange, China, according to sources, must guarantee the continuous supply of rare earth elements and refrain from imposing sanctions on American corporations. Experts at The Economist call this the greatest technological blackmail in history. Paradoxically, the United States, which created the largest economy in the world and possesses enormous scientific resources, has become dependent on Chinese mines that determine the fate of its leading corporation. While Trump publicly speaks about the revival of American industry and independence from China, Behind closed doors, his administration is forced to make concessions to preserve vital supply chains for Nvidia and other technological giants. Investors fear that even a short-term export blockade could trigger an avalanche-like collapse, since Nvidia's chips are the foundation of the entire artificial intelligence boom. Without them, cloud services would fail, models would stop training, military simulators would shut down, and autonomous vehicles would cease production. This is a domino effect that could impact not only Silicon Valley, but the entire global economy. In China, however, the situation is presented differently. State media, including Global Times and People's Daily, call U.S. actions technological hypocrisy, claiming that Washington provoked the crisis by attempting to monopolize the AI market. Chinese analysts point out that the country has enough capacity to create its own Nvidia equivalents within 2 years, based on Huawei Ascend and Cambricon architectures. And although these chips are still inferior in performance, the trend is clear. China is preparing the ground for technological sovereignty and intends to use pressure on Nvidia as a show of strength. Meanwhile, alarming statements are being heard in the halls of the U.S. Congress. Marco Rubio said that America itself allowed China to become the master of key resources of the future. If China shuts off the flow, Nvidia will fall, and with it will collapse the illusion of American technological superiority. For now, the markets remain frozen in anticipation. According to CNBC, Nvidia's headquarters in Santa Clara has entered a heightened state of secrecy. Employees are forbidden to comment on the supply situation, and senior management holds daily closed meetings. Chief Executive Jensen Huang, according to sources, is actively negotiating with both sides, with the Trump administration and with Chinese representatives through private channels. He fully understands that the outcome of these negotiations will determine not only his company's fate, but the future of the entire global artificial intelligence market. If the deal collapses, the consequences will be catastrophic. Production lines will stop. Thousands of companies dependent on GPUs will lose access to chips, and the global AI race will come to a halt. A world accustomed to rapid technological progress will suddenly find itself on pause. The irony is that the most valuable company on the planet will not be fighting competitors, but geopolitics. Nvidia has become a hostage of a new Cold War, a war not for oil or gas, but for silicon and rare earth elements. And the higher its market value rises, the louder the fall will be if China decides to pull that invisible lever. The situation is further aggravated by reports from Nikkei Asia that several major equipment manufacturers, including TSMC and ASML, have begun reviewing their delivery schedules for Nvidia, fearing possible sanctions from China. Within the industry, discussions are already underway about a scenario in which the company would be forced to relocate part of its assembly capacity to India or Vietnam. However, this would require at least 18 to 24 months and hundreds of billions of dollars in investment. Meanwhile, China is preparing its own response. According to the South China Morning Post, a state fund is being created in Shenzhen to support national chip developers, with the goal of pushing American technologies out of the domestic market by the year 2027. Paradoxically, the very technological leader that became a symbol of American power has now become the Achilles heel of the entire industry. Within the company, this is already being called the silicon blackmail of the century. And the longer the White House delays making a decision, the higher the likelihood that China will seize this moment to permanently shift the balance of power in the global technological race.